Hello, everyone. Welcome into another BDPA Tech and Career Talk. I am your host, our Tech and Career Talk leader, Devin Jenkins. I currently serve as the IT pricing leader for US and Canada for GE Healthcare. And I'm also the founder CEO of Share the Vibes LLC, connecting people through music and technology. So glad to have you all with us. In case you are new to BDPA or our Tech Talks, we have our Tech and Career Talks on the second and fourth Friday of each month. We have a range of speakers, a range of topics. Some speakers are entrepreneurs, like our speaker today. Some are corporate executives. Some are kind of early mid-career. Do have a range, and we have topics from emotional intelligence, like today, to brain-machine interaction. So you might get very technical one week. We might be a little more on our softer skills side on another week, but we like to cover something that touches everyone that we all can learn from and apply. BDPA is Black Data Processing Associates. The organization has been around since 1975 as an organization focused on building up computer and technical skills in our young people, especially in our African-American community, as well as being a forum for professional development, networking, and furthering the careers of those
Yes,
already
hello.
professionals in the IT industry.
Yes.
So we are excited to have you here today as we continue to carry forth our mantra of advancing careers from the classroom to the boardroom. The last thing I'll say before we turn it over to our speaker today, if you have not already, I want to encourage you to go out and register for this year's conference. It will be in Atlanta, Georgia, again in August 17th through the 19th at the Westin Peachtree Plaza. The team is planning a great event for you this year. If you were there last year, we plan to do it even better this year. So hope to see you there. I'll put the link to conference registration in the chat here a little bit later in the call, along with a few other links for your reference. But that being said, I'm going to get out of the way and turn it over to our speaker today, Mr. Samuel Davis. I'll let you introduce yourself in your own right so I don't mess it up. But glad to have you back with us, Samuel, not a stranger to BDPA or our Tech and Career Talks. Welcome in, Samuel. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for that, Devin. And thank you to all of those on the line today. This is an honor, a privilege, probably my third time speaking on the topic. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share some of the things I've learned. I do not consider myself to be a subject matter expert. I'm simply an individual that offers his testimonial around the importance of having identified what emotional intelligence is. So today I am grateful for you to give me a chance to basically speak on some things that I've collected in a form of investigation, interviews, and also data capture. And emotional intelligence is an item that helped change me as a person. And as a result of that, I thought I would share the sauce to those that are either starting their careers or maybe those that are well established that may have area of opportunity to realize a way of obtaining a more favorable outcome using tact. So that is pretty much the basis. Outside of that, some of the more important things about me, I'm happily married to my college sweetheart, got 17 years of marriage under my belt, proud parent of 2 children, got a son that's 13 years of age, 6'4". So all the gentlemen, ladies, please pray for me. This little guy is coming for the throne and thinks he can, but I'm still trying to stand my ground. And my daughter, 16 years of age, the love of my life and sweet in every capacity. But outside of that, I've been very fortunate to work in organizations in many C-suite capacities, and I've learned quite a bit. So I've been around the block, and I do hope that today's content is informative, educational, maybe even entertaining. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and I'm gonna go off the camera so that you can see what's going on. And for those of you that are fish enthusiasts, not allowed the fish aquarium to be distracting. So let me go ahead and share my screen. While it's coming up on my side. Stop the video. Okay, someone give me a thumbs up just to ensure that you're able to see the screen in its entirety. It's the main deck that says emotional intelligence. Is that good to go?
Good to go.
Good deal. So again, my name is Samuel Davis. Most recently, I held a position as director at Nationwide as one of their senior leaders, leading operations around software engineering. And I'm currently offering consulting services to a number of organizations that are looking to have input from a senior leader as I transition into other arenas within our industry. So with that, let's discuss emotional intelligence in the workplace and life. And I want to thank you in advance for being responsive and participating and also giving feedback. I would ask, as we're not in person today, that you leverage and use the chat. So there are going to be times when I ask, please input your feedback or answers or thoughts in the chat so that we can have some momentum and I can reference that as I'm facilitating. So I thank you in advance for that. All right. So today, a little bit of an agenda I want you to be aware of. And what is that? I've done the welcome and introduction we obtained from Devin. We're going to have about 40 to 45 minutes of content, and I'm going to make effort to have a Q&A at the end, which should be about 15 minutes or so. And again, I would like to say that any and all feedback is welcome. This presentation has been given to those that are younger, new to the industry, also to senior executives. So I try to modify it based on who I feel the audience will be. And today I was made to learn that the majority of the individuals may be new individuals. So we're going to go with the flow and have a good time. All right. So again, about myself, happily married to love of my life, my college sweetheart named Jessica. She's a 6-footer, played volleyball, and I got 2 wonderful kids. This is an older picture, but they're now teenagers. And again, what inspires me to try to do what I do regarding sharing information? I try to create value in the lives of others. And we as a people know the importance of doing that, because when we create a ripple effect, it continues as long as we spread that goodness. And that is where one of the companies that I own, called Benevolence Holdings Limited, gains its foundation. And the chess pieces there, that's basically just that. We're all strategic tacticians. So what to expect? Avoidance of dust collectors. Normally this presentation is in person, but in this case it's going to be virtual. But I still intend to make sure it's not a waste of time. I would love for there to be some content that is valid, relevant, and maybe even something that helps you give consideration to implementing it in your way of going about doing things. So we are going to define emotional intelligence. We are going to communicate why we react the way that we do. So there's going to be some analysis, a little bit of science, but also real talk as adults. So I'm going to try to really go there, be transparent and vulnerable. And again, as I'll do my best to reference the chat, please ask questions as you see necessary. And as I can, I will try to address those if I'm able to. So the key thing, how do we communicate better? And with that, I'd love to start this presentation around the country by sharing this one thing, as I attended a presentation once by the lovely sister here, Mrs. Bassett. So she had shared a quote from a gentleman named Charles Swindoll. Life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. I think a lot of the individuals on the line would truly agree that, as we have been around the block a few times, we can understand and appreciate life is truly just that. 10% of what happens to us, but how we deal with things, that is truly what impacts our experience in a lot of ways. So, emotional intelligence. Got a question for the group. And at this point, I would like for you to refer to the chat, please, and try to answer this question. So I have a little bit of trivia. What percentage of top performers have high emotional intelligence in your opinion? If you will refer to the chat and just share, what percentage in a number form do you feel top performers have emotional intelligence? So I've noticed 80%, 45%, and a few other numbers. 90%. So 90% of top performers typically have high emotional intelligence. Now, next question. Emotional intelligence is responsible for what percentage of your job performance? What are some thoughts? What percentage of your job performance is typically associated with your emotional intelligence? I see 30%. I see 75%. I see 60%, 40%. Well, Pretty close, 58%. So according to data reflected by 2022, 58% of our job performance is allocated to our emotional intelligence. Last trivia I got for you for this moment. People with high emotional intelligence make how much more money than their counterparts that have low emotional intelligence? As a dollar amount, how much more money would you say annually people tend to make much more than their counterparts? Let's see, 50,000, 60%, 30 to 40, 20,000. So definitely appears that you all are certainly aware of some of the realities in the place. What's the answer? 29,000. So on average, individuals with a high emotional intelligence tend to make about $29,000 to $30,000 more annually than their counterparts with low emotional intelligence. So thank you all for providing that information in the chat there. So today, again, I'm going to do my best to ensure that we define what emotional intelligence is. We're going to speak to what it looks like and how we can display greater emotional intelligence, but also how we can help those who we interact with who have low emotional intelligence. So by definition, emotional intelligence is a person's ability to recognize his or her emotions as well as the emotions of others. Okay? Now, this is my definition from my experiences as a person. I want to share that I believe from my experiences, emotional intelligence is having an awareness of how our words, actions, and behaviors affect others we interact with. So based on our own ability to perceive, regulate, and manage our own emotions. So let me dive a little bit deeper when we think about this. I grew up in a particular area surrounded by certain individuals and experienced certain things. That is specific to me. So when some things happen, my reaction and response and energy level will be specific to me. Other individuals may have a totally different experience, and I have to take into consideration what their response and intake might be. So that's a form of control based on my self-awareness. So if I am a 6 foot tall, 240-pound Black man in the presence of others that might be, let's say, 5'5", 120 pounds in a conference room, my demeanor, the tone in my voice, the bass, those may project something that could be intimidating, or maybe even laughable, or it could impose respect. So there's a number of different reactions and responses people could have based on their own experiences. So again, the key thing throughout this presentation, and it's going to be reinforced multiple times, is that emotional intelligence, in my experience, is that it's having an awareness of how our words, our actions, and behaviors affect others we interact with. And again, that's based on our own ability to perceive, regulate, and manage our own emotions. Okay, so this is something I would like for you to do. I'm going to do a quick little breakout room. I'm going to give that an effort, but I would like you to answer this question within the small groups. Do emotions belong at work? Okay, so I would like you to pose the question with yes, if, that depends on, or no, unless. So an example might be yes, if you're in the social services arena and your job requires you to have good bedside manner. So emotions would certainly belong at work. No, unless you're in an environment where you're on a battlefield and you need to give commands that can be the difference between life and death. So emotions may not be the most appropriate. So those are just some examples. But as I do the breakout rooms, I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes. Please try to answer those questions from your experience. So yes, if, or that depends on, or no, unless. And then just put a little bit of feedback in the chat for me so that I can review that and share that with the group. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. Oh, Disregard. I do not have that ability as I'm presenting from a shared device. So what I would ask you to do right now is go to your chat and just use those 3 examples so that I can reference a few of those and read those aloud. Do emotions belong at work? What are your thoughts? So please refer to the chat and put some samples in there for me, please. Excellent. So I thank everyone for giving that input. And I'm just going to read a couple if that's okay. I see a few good examples. I see one from Andre. He indicates, yes, if done in an appropriate way, such as professionally and with purpose. Excellent. There's another I see from Miss Jones. Yes, if you are bringing your whole authentic self to work, you may have emotions, but it's how you deal with them, and leaders should be able to identify what changes or environments can cause an emotional reaction. Excellent. I see another by Lewis Roberts. That depends on the specific setting. Controlling your emotions so that you can communicate with empathy can be very powerful. Phenomenal. Excellent feedback. Thank you all very much for that. That's excellent. And something that I would like you all to know, and I think you can appreciate this, when we do this presentation in person and you have the proximity of others sharing their feedback, it allows those to give awareness of what they thought, may not have thought, but it also inspires others to consider different perspectives. So that is some of the magic I've come to learn and really appreciate in giving this type of presentation. So again, thank you for that feedback. So I think it's clear, there's no question about it. Our emotions are a part of our lives. The problem is not with emotionality, but with the appropriateness of emotion and its expression. And I want to take the time to read this thoroughly so that I do not lose a point I wish to make. So once you can recognize the emotions, you then can understand the powerful effects of these emotions and the use of that information to guide and take action with your thinking and behavior. And that was reflected in the chat from some of the feedback that was shared. So again, kudos to the group. So I think a lot of you on the line, especially those of you that are either parents or grandparents or even great-grandparents, or those of you that are looking to become parents or just have awareness and interaction with kids, I think this is a fair statement. Children are great barometers of a parent's emotional intelligence. Again, I've mentioned my daughter, who is the love of my life. This is her when she was a little bitty, and she lets me know immediately what her reaction and response is based on the way in which I engage with her. So as a loving father, I try to ensure that my approach is customized to my interactions with her. It may be different with another gentleman, same height, same size, same weight, same age, but with a younger person, it needs to be modified. So again, emotional intelligence is our delivery of interacting and responding to others. That's the key point that I'm looking to make throughout this presentation. So if you have a high degree of emotional intelligence, what typically is that? Well, it typically means that you know what you're feeling, you tend to know what your emotions mean, and you tend to have an awareness of how they affect other people. I think a lot of us may know, hey, I've achieved a high level of success in my career, and I have done that by doing what I've done my whole career. Well, that is a perspective. That is a stance. However, I want to share this, which is what inspired me to want to speak about this. I can share that as a younger person, a couple decades ago, I earned a good reputation for getting things done as a project manager. It really didn't matter what it might be, but I tried to ensure that whatever outcome was requested by leadership, that I would go about ensuring that it happens while using integrity and decency. However, I did not use emotional intelligence. As a result of that, a person that cared about me later told me, You know, you're getting things done and you're doing a good job according to leadership, but you're leaving a lot of wounded bodies on the ground. What does that mean in the business world? People do not want to work with you. People fret when they know they're going to have to engage or interact or come in your presence. People may try to prepare themselves so that they can manage and endure what it's like for them and others to deal with you. As you may feel based on your visibility lens, I am great the way that I am because I've been this way and my title reflects my accomplishment and my salary reflects my competency. Well, what if there's a disconnect? What if through grace, favor, mercy, all of those things, those are the reasons for your achievement and elevation in life? What if it has nothing to do truly with who you are as a person? So again, this is an awareness opportunity to realize perhaps there's an area of opportunity to get the same desired outcome you want, but by displaying emotional intelligence. And again, as I was a person that did not have emotional intelligence, when I learned and stopped refusing to accept accountability and resisting ownership, when I stopped doing those things and owning my stuff, I then realized I can do better. I can be better. And as a result, it has helped me elevate in ways I never thought possible. So the question becomes not how do we remove emotions from the workplace, but instead, how do we manage our emotional life with intelligence? We are aware as people of color, we have to be amazing. Sometimes we have to display excellence. I know from experience, and I think you would agree, it can be exhausting. It can be exhausting as we have to disprove stereotypes daily. And we have to assess body language in ways a lot of others may not. So if we are using intelligence aligned with emotional intelligence, it will simply ensure maybe that our experience is better. So this is a strategic tactic that can help. So not sharing our emotions can be toxic to our health and our relationships. Okay. So what are some signs of high emotional intelligence? Well, that's the ability to handle criticism without denial, blame, making excuses. You know, the ultimate goal, as I've said, is to achieve the ability to listen without defending and to speak without offending. I'm gonna pause because I know some of you may digest that and it might be a happy digestion of content if you have never heard that. But I'm glad that I've learned of this actually at a BDPA conference, and this was feedback given from one of the presenters, not presenters, but one of the attendees of the presentation I was giving. That person said, well, my understanding, Samuel, is that the ultimate goal of emotional intelligence is achieving the ability to listen without defending and to speak without offending. That was great feedback. And as a result, I made sure going forward, that is something that I share each and every time I give this presentation. So what are some additional signs of high emotional intelligence? Well, I would think it would be being open-minded, having the ability to listen to situations without reacting or judging. Let me go back to that. Doesn't dismiss an idea because it's not his or her own. These are signs of high emotional intelligence. We have to be open-minded. If we feel that we are correct, we are right, but we're not being rational, that is displaying resistance and it eliminates area of opportunity. So we must be open-minded. Further, being a good listener. You know, there are times where we just need to have our mouths closed and our ears open, you know, not simply tolerating listening, only to reply. I'm going to say that again. I think that may have given someone a chill. I know it did me years ago. Being a good listener means not simply tolerating listening and only to reply. So that's very important. Not thinking of questions while the other person is talking. So I'm gonna repeat that because I can see from some of the feedback that is very meaningful. So being a good listener is not simply tolerating listening only to reply, not simply thinking of questions while the other person is talking. We need to ensure we can do better. So additional signs of high emotional intelligence, and I'm gonna go through this one pretty quick. Don't sugarcoat the truth. A lot of us are aware, hey, I tell it like it is. That is okay. But also, you can use kindness, you can use empathy. There's nothing wrong with being honest, but you can use tact with your delivery versus using hard love and tough love all the time. I think we would agree with that. So someone with high emotional intelligence recognizes the emotions in others, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll shy away from telling the truth. Okay, so I think that's very important that we can appreciate that. So if we have a tough conversation, they will not need to be hurtful only to shut down another person, but they can be honest and direct. I think that's very important for us to know. So what are some additional signs? Apologizes when they're wrong. You know, that's very important. Now I want to convert. Signs of low emotional intelligence, no self-awareness, no empathy, oblivious to own emotions and emotions of others, no clue why people are offended by the things that they do or say. And there's a number of others. But the key thing is that person doesn't read body language and are typically not able to read the room. So they have no idea when they've hurt a person's feelings, when they yell versus pulling them aside to talk through something. I think we all get the point. So additional signs of low emotional intelligence, being a bull in a china shop. I think we all may have known a person that can be just that, being a bull in a china shop. And when you work with someone that's way, it may not be the best experience. So what are some keys to raising someone's low emotional intelligence? I'm glad you asked. It's important to get feedback, but they also must want to change. I think a lot of us on the call would realize a lot of times a person's reaction and behavior is not about you, but about them. That requires a lot of maturity, self-awareness, but also discipline to assess that. So an individual may pop off and you may wonder what's wrong with them. Having an awareness that something is going on with them, it may not directly be about you, because truly the reality might be, if it were not you, it would be someone else, you know? So what if they feel that they're getting things done, but no one likes working with them, you know? When is it worth trying to help? We have to pick and choose. Now, I'm a realist. Some individuals do not want feedback. Some individuals do not want to change or improve, but that should not be a reason for your shortcoming. You have to make effort. So again, it's important to get feedback when you're able to. So I think this is important to share. Impacts of low emotional intelligence can be detrimental to a person's career, their reputation, their relationships, family connectedness, friendships and happiness, and so on. So additional signs of low emotional intelligence, a person that lashes out. I wonder if any of you have ever experienced someone that there's someone that instead of thinking rationally to talk through an issue, when something goes wrong, they lash out. That can be frustrating, you know? Some individuals are uncomfortable with productive discomfort. I want to say that again. Some individuals are uncomfortable when dealing with productive discomfort. It's important for us to be willing to have a conversation that engages negotiation, compromise, rework. All of that is important. Those are all signs that we need to show. But when a person jumps to conclusions without fully understanding the matter, irrationally justifying themselves with no evidence or facts, that can be frustrating. So I think we all can realize and imagine what it may be like if we're dealing with someone like that, or if we ourselves have been that type of person at one time. So to help make the point around low emotional intelligence, and I hope you can appreciate some of the pictures that are to come, as a couple of years ago, I allowed my kids to help me put together this PowerPoint, but I think it still serves a good purpose. So this is a little video clip that may give you a chuckle, but it should be about 2 minutes, so I hope you can enjoy this.
Those piggies got a friend who's bouncy, flouncy, and trouncy. You know who he is, so let's go meet him. Oh, glad to meet you. Name's Tigger. T-I-double-G-R. That spells Tigger. The wonderful thing about Tiggers is Tiggers are wonderful things. The tops are made out of rubber. The bottoms are made out of springs. They're bouncy, trouncy, flouncy, pouncy, fun, 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 fun. But the most wonderful things about Tiggers is I'm the only one. The wonderful thing about Tiggers is Tiggers are wonderful chaps. You're loaded with vim and with vigor. They love to leap in your lap. They're jumpy, bumpy, clumpy, thumpy, fun, 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 fun. But the most wonderful things about Tiggers is I'm the only one. Tiggers are cuddly fellas. Tiggers are awfully sweet. Everyone else is jealous, and that's why I repeat. Oh, the wonderful thing about Tiggers is Tiggers are wonderful things. The tops are made out of rubber. The bottoms are made out of spring. They're bouncy, trouncy, flouncy, pouncy, fun, 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 fun. But the most wonderful things about Tiggers is I'm the only one. Cheerio! Tiggers are cuddly fellas. Tiggers are awfully sweet. Everyone else is jealous, and that's why I repeat. Oh, the wonderful things about Tiggers is Tiggers are wonderful things. The tops are made out of rubber. The bottoms are made out of spring. The bouncy, trouncy, flouncy, pouncy, fun, 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 fun. But the most wonderful things about Tiggers is I'm the only one. I'm the only one.
So I think it's pretty clear that Tigger has very low emotional intelligence. He said that I'm this, I'm that, I'm great. Everyone else is jealous. So I don't think there's any room for improvement or welcoming recommendations on how to be different. That's an indicator of a person with very low emotional intelligence. So this is very similar to someone who finds others to blame. It is never their fault, and they seek out other people or sources to fuel their confirmation bias. Chances are you're thinking of someone. So having low emotional intelligence can truly hurt your brand. It can hurt your experience. It can hurt your alignment opportunity. So that is something I do hope that if you realize maybe there is evidence that you may have low emotional intelligence, I do hope that you will give consideration to improving it. I certainly had to, which is why I commit myself to trying to spread this message. So we're going to convert and speak a little bit about the science around this. So there's a rational brain, there's a limbic system as well. Emotional intelligence is a balance between the rational and emotional brain. We have the cerebral cortex, we have the limbic. The limbic is the center of your emotions. The cerebral is the rational. That's pretty much where we're thinking. That's the advanced part of our brain, okay? Now, fight or flight response. I'm going to share a few things. So physiologically, by definition, it's a reaction to something terrifying, mentally or physically. That response triggers a hormone adrenaline. That's when your heart races, your palms are sweaty, and your muscles become tense. The adrenaline preps your body instantly to either stay and deal with the threat or run away. Now, here's a cute little image here. Daily life or death situations. So in the day of the caveman, they were worried about the saber-toothed tigers attacking and killing them. It was a life and death situation most of the day. Now, obviously, because many of us are not always under a constant threat of being attacked or killed, typically our brains are operating, all systems go. But let's just say when the saber-toothed tiger pounces out of nowhere, suddenly our limbic or emotional brain will kick in a gear. So what are some saber-toothed tiger moments of today? There's a number of them. Well, as the majority of us are IT professionals within a project management office or some type of IT department, let's just say that a system crashes enterprise-wide for an entire organization. Let's say that data is lost on all cloud platforms, servers, all firewalls are turned off. What about the customizations are replaced? What about all customizations to replace legacy systems have been corrupted? What about security features have been collapsed? And what about the project sponsor agrees to a gold plating initiative via email the day before deployment? So I can see some from the body language, those would all be bad things. But in real life, outside of work, it could be your iPhone charger has been misplaced, a patient health declines, you encounter or experience an enraged employee within the workforce. Maybe your Facebook is not working, or maybe you receive a late night urgent email from your boss, or your spouse may not be answering their phone, or Maybe there's a child that's injured at a sporting event. Again, all of these are examples of what could be saber-tooth tiger moments up to date. All right, so I'm going to ask that you refer to the chat again. We have a quick pop quiz. I got about 3 questions. These are basically circumstances that encourage certain responses that shows awareness of our emotional intelligence. So, pop quiz. You are in a meeting when a colleague takes credit for your work that you have done. What would you do? Well, would it be A, immediately and publicly confront the colleagues over the ownership of your work? Would it be B, after the meeting, take the colleague aside and tell him or her that you would appreciate the future if he, she credits you when speaking about your work? C, nothing. It's not a good idea to embarrass colleague in public. Or D, after the colleague speaks, publicly thank him or her for referencing your work and give the group more specific detail about what you're trying to accomplish. So there's truly no right or wrong answer. It's more of a reflection of what you think is emotional intelligence. So as we go through these, I will reveal of the options, which one is most closely aligned with emotional intelligence. So if you would at this moment, please refer to the chat and just share what you feel you think is the most emotionally intelligent response. Okay, so I can see there's a number of options there. So let's look at some of the criteria here. So it's not A. A will be a form of fight. Not necessarily B. That could be effective depending on the nonverbals used during the conversation and the criticalness of the topic. What about C? Well, C is a form of flight. Now, what about D? D is effective and very, very tough. If I don't do this well, it looks like fight with a smile on my face. So let's try another one. You are trying to calm down a colleague who has worked himself, herself into a fury because the driver of another car has cut dangerously in front of them. What do? Would it be A, tell them to forget about it? She's okay. It's no big deal. Would it be B, put on one of their favorite CDs and try not to distract them? Or C, join her in criticizing the other driver? Or would it be D, in your opinion? Tell her about a time something like this happened to you and how angry you felt until you saw the other driver was on their way to the hospital. Of those 4, in this situation, what do you think is the most closely aligned with being emotionally intelligent? Please refer to the chat and just indicate A, B, C, or D, please. Okay, thank you all for that. So I can see A, well, A would be flight. That's really not showing empathy, not providing an opportunity for the colleague to express himself. B would be flight as well. C would be fight. What about D? D is effective because we're using our brain to recall another situation most closely associated with rational mindedness. Okay, now I'm looking very forward to the answers for this next one. A discussion between you and your partner has escalated into a shouting match. You are both upset, and in the heat of the argument, you start making personal attacks, which neither of you really mean. What is the best thing to do? Would it be A, go silent, regardless of what your partner says? Would it be B, say you are sorry and ask that your partner apologizes as well? Would it be C, stop for a moment, collect your thoughts, then restate your side of the case as precisely as possible? Or would it be D, agree to take a 20-minute break before continuing the discussion? Please refer to the chat and let me know which one you think might be most closely aligned. Okay, so let's take a look here. So A would be flight, B would be flight, C would be flight. I think you all appreciate this. Now, as we can see, D may be pretty effective. Taking 20 minutes away, allowing adrenaline to go away, it may help. However, this option often feels unreasonable to couples and married people because they may feel, hey, the argument would just begin at minute 21. So what about this one here? You have recently been assigned to a young manager on your team, and you have noticed that he or she appears to be unable to make the simplest of decisions without seeking advice from you. What do you do? Would it be A, accept that he or she does not have what it takes to succeed around here and find others in your team to take on his task? Would it be B, get an HR manager to talk to him or her about where he or she sees his or her future in the organization? What about C, purposely give that individual many complex decisions to make so that they will become more confident in their role? Or would you say D, generate an outgoing series of challenging but manageable experiences that he or she and willingly make yourself available for them as a mentor? So of the options here, what do you think might be the most emotionally intelligent based on this situation? So as I look at the feedback, thank you all so much. I see that Wes indicates D. I see that Timothy indicates, hey, build the leader, D. So overwhelmingly, it appears that D is the right option to select. So let's go directly to that. So we can see that A is flight, B is flight, C is fight. D, it builds confidence and competence at the same time, investing yourself into the developmental process by serving as a mentor. So excellent feedback from the chat. Very, very happy to get that response. Okay, so I'm gonna go a little faster here because I think everyone, based on the feedback and observation and nonverbal communication I'm seeing, that we're all digesting this content very well. And I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I'm very grateful that we're having good momentum and good alignment. So being in tune with your emotional intelligence is essential to your success. Absolutely. So for the remainder of the presentation, I'm literally driving that point home. So you must know how to react and respond emotionally. As a leader, team member, whatever your role, when you have a higher emotional intelligence, you'll be able to react better. I think that's pretty clear. Now, when you have a lower emotional intelligence, you have a harder time and react much slower than a person with higher emotional intelligence. So this is an extreme, but as you can see, there's an individual that appears to have high emotional intelligence. But if you're an individual and you're on the highway and you're going over 65 miles per hour and you have the audacity to reach outside of your window and stare at the person you wish to make clear how you feel, I think that's a clear distinction between high emotional intelligence and low emotional intelligence. So who is more likely to succeed? A leader who screams at his or her team, or a leader who stays in control and calmly assesses the situation? This is an opinion, but again, as we're discussing emotional intelligence in the workplace and in life, there are times in which we must display certain responses. So what about using tact? So it's very clear that we can, of course, react how we want, but using emotional intelligence will typically depend on ways in which we are prepared. Okay, so now the 5 main components of emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social skill. So regarding self-awareness, the ability to recognize and understand your moods, your emotions, things that drive you, as well as the effect they have on others. What is wrong with this woman? So again, we need to have a self-awareness. That's our ability to recognize and understand how our moods, our emotion, and how it drives others and how it may affect them. So again, self-awareness. Someone with good self-awareness is said to have self-confidence. They have a realistic self-assessment, a good grasp on who they are. They may know their weaknesses and their shortcomings and isn't afraid to point them out, often in a humorous way. Everyone likes someone that doesn't take themselves too seriously, that has humility, but also requires respect. How do we improve self-awareness? Well, be intentional. Maybe you need to journal, slow down. So regarding being intentional, see yourself as the one in charge of your own life. You know, I want to stop because I got a great question here before we proceed. I see that Samuel Nixon asks a great question. Is emotional intelligence tempered by the mood we may be in on any given day? Excellent question. I want to be truly authentic. How you feel based on what's going on in your life is of no fault to anyone else. That's the reality. That's the reality. Now, does that mean individuals should not be empathetic, maybe be discerning based on what you are dealing with and going through? Should they take the time to try and gain an awareness and understanding of what's happening in your life? It's not owed to you, nor are they required. Would it be nice? Absolutely. I think we all as leaders would love to have an environment where there is psychological safety, where it's safe to communicate how you feel and know that others are probing to inquire, hey, what's going on? However, going back to the question, is it tempered by our mood? I want to say that emotional intelligence is a choice. It's a behavior. So for example, you may have had your car stolen while going to the convenience store, while leaving it on during the cold winter months. And when you went outside to go get your car, it was gone. And therefore you had to walk, let's say 2 miles to your workplace. And you are dealing with this in real time. So you might be frustrated, you might be angry, but you still have a reputation to maintain. So you have a choice on how you display and conduct yourself in the workplace, although you're going through that. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Nixon, that you are still able to display your emotional intelligence towards others, no matter what your mood might be. And the reason is you are accountable for your experience and your delivery of self to others. They are not responsible. So I hope that is appropriate and that does help. Okay.
Well, okay, thank you. I was going to ask you, because if it's a matter of the discipline of the individual, then that does determine, I guess, how your emotional intelligence is operating that day. If I'm angry and come to my other fellows angry that day and carrying it with me, my emotional intelligence may be kind of on the back burner for that time, versus the next day where I'm feeling really happy and come to the workplace happy.
Absolutely. And I think that's great evidence of vulnerability, being that honest. And so as you indicated, typically your typical mood and demeanor might be pleasant, but on that day, not as much, but we still have that responsibility. So a lot of the following presentation just reinforces that. So I'm going to go a little rapid because I want to get some questions in here. So self-regulation, as we indicated, let me go a little faster. Self-motivation, I think that's one we need to talk about. A passion to work for reasons that go beyond money or status. Pursuing goals with energy and persistence, very important. Self-motivation, to improve your self-motivation, it's important that we not only are hopeful, but we find something good in our day. As was just pointed out, we may not always have great days, but we have to try to identify something that does make it positive for ourselves. Empathy, the ability to understand the emotional makeup of other people, the ability to treat people according to their emotional reactions, extremely important. And again, forgive me for going a little faster, but I'm under a time constraint, but as I get passionate, I sometimes go a little over. So I'm going to make sure I get it done on time. So empathy, extremely important. Ability to put themselves in another person's shoes. I think we all can agree that is extremely important. ways in which we improve our empathy. Look at a situation from another person's point of view. Listen, ask what the other person would do. These are all very important. Social skills. Some of us have a lot of people calling our phone. We're invited places. We have an ability to manage relationships and build networks, ability to find common ground and build rapport. Extremely important. So those are all great things. So as we're wrapping up here, we can see that it's literally reinforcing a lot of these key things that help around this. And so the 5 main components of emotional intelligence, as we just went through, are self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. And I want to take the time to read this because I think this summarizes a lot of what we've went through. Looking through all 5 components of emotional intelligence and how we improve upon them, whether we have low emotional intelligence or high, we are continually adding pieces to the puzzle. It's very important that we all know none of us are perfect. Everyone needs to hone their skills. It's a constant work in progress. If we think about an Olympic athlete, they're at the top of their game, in great shape, but they're still practicing each and every day, okay? So I'm gonna leave with this video here, and I think that would then allow me to transition into questions so that I can be respectful of my time. And I see Devin has given me 8 minutes. So I think some of you may have heard of a DISC profile. A DISC profile helps to show people are different and helps validate that part of their emotional intelligence along with their social skills and how people typically read each other. So this is very important. It takes about 4 minutes and I want to show this, and then I think we'll convert over to the questions.
People are different. People are different, but they are predictably different. Do you believe that people are different? How many of you guys believe that people are different? Yes, of course, people are all different. How many of you believe that we can predict how someone will act or react in a given environment? Let me show you how we do that. In the general population, there are 4 types of people, and we call them dominant, or the D style, influencing, or the I style, stable, or steady, which is the S style, and then the C style is the compliant style. And those are the people that make up our world, and you see those people all the time. You see those people all the time. If you've ever walked up to an elevator and saw the guy that presses the button and then steps back and looks at the button again, and then he presses it, and then he taps it or holds it, because he thinks that as he presses that, the elevator must surely arrive faster, that is the D personality style. Dominant, direct, they're drivers. They want to control their environment. They want to do something to make something happen in their world, and so they will keep their thumb on that button until the elevator comes. Now, once the doors open and everyone walks in and they close, the one guy that turns around and starts talking to people, the guy that's smiling because once the doors close, he knows he has a captive audience, that is the I personality style. They're the influencers. They're the ones when the door opens, he goes, boom, 3rd floor, lingerie, enjoy your day. Those are the I's. Now the S personality style, they're stable, steady. They're very relational. They are people. Now they're the people that if the door's starting to close, but there's somebody that may or may not be wanting to get on the elevator, they'll stick their hand out. There's plenty of room, come on in, come on in. Now the D is back there going, oh, come on, man. I gotta go, like, why are you waiting? And the yes is holding the door open. And if there's too many people, they'll say, you know what, I'll just take the stairs. So they'll get out, let somebody else go. You go on, it's okay. That's that S personality style, very stable, steady. Now, the C's. The C personality style is the guy that's very quiet, off to the side, and he's standing there looking at the plaque that says maximum weight, 3,700 pounds. And he's calculating body weight. He's going, if one person gets on, I'm off. Like that's the guy. He's the guy that notices when the inspection date is due on the elevator. So those are the 4 personality styles. Now, D's make up about 3% of the population. 3%. Do you know why? Because any more than 3% and we would be at war all the time. So God in his wisdom said, we need those D's, we need those drivers, but let's keep them down to about 3% of the population. I's are about 11% of the population. And I's are fun to have around, but any more than 11% of the population, we would never get anything done. S's make up 69% of the population. They are the majority of people that you're gonna be dealing with. Very stable, steady. Another S word for you, status quo. They like things the way things are right now. They make up 69% of the population. C's, what percent of the population would C's be? Okay, the person that said 17%, that person's a C. Do you know why? Because they did the math. They added it up and subtracted from it, oh, 17. So there's the C. That's the C style. That's the C personality style. But it's important to know these personality styles. It's important to know, first of all, for you, what blend of those styles, because those blends are all in us. Any one of us can be any one of those styles. How many of you believe that your personality style can change based on your environment? Yeah, that's right. You know what? Your car is your environment. And so people who are very easygoing, very stable, steady, laid back, sometimes they get behind the wheel, they turn into a D. And then as soon as they lock the door, doot, doot, they're back to their, hi, how's everything? And so you see these people change their styles in the car. When you start to merge, the guy that gets in front or won't let you through, that's the D. That's the D style. He will take a dent before he lets you in front of him. He's like, I'll take the dent. You will, no. That's the D personality style. Now the I is the guy that's trying to get in because he didn't realize that they were merging. Do you know why? Because he's talking and, he's singing a song. He's looking, he's like, hey, that was a good song. Last time I was down here, I remember there's a great radio. Oh, darn, I got to merge. That's the I. And he's waving. Hey, can I come in? Hey, can I come in? Hey, can I come in? Now the S personality style, they're the people that eventually will let you in. And they're like, this isn't right, but look at that guy. He's obviously from out of town. All right, I'll let you in. Now that percentage of people probably goes down as construction goes up. Now the C's are rarely in that situation. You know why? Because those are the people that have planned their route. Well, you have to leave a half hour early because you're gonna want to make sure you do that. So those are the personality styles. So people are different. They are predictably different.
Okay, I think Devin has a couple words for us. And I see from the chat, Armanda had asked will the presentation be made available? Yes, I'll share with Devin and he'll send it out to the group. So I would certainly be willing to share this as I have modified it for a number of different audiences, but there's a lot of content that I think is very valuable. So the answer is yes.
Yes, and thank you, Samuel, for sharing with us today. As we are at 12:30, I just wanted to say a few things, and then Samuel will stick around for a few more minutes if anyone wants to stay and ask some questions or have additional conversation. But I put 3 links in the chat. One is for the conference for this year, BDPA Con 23. So please go to conference.bdpa.org and make sure you register for this year's conference in Atlanta. The second link is the site for all of the recordings of these sessions. So the recording from this session will be out there shortly, as well as all of our previous tech and career talks there at bdpa.org/tech in career talks. So that is in the chat as well. You can also watch these on YouTube. National BDPA is the channel. Like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. And then we also have Samuel's LinkedIn profile linked in the chat. So if you want to connect with Samuel, he is active on LinkedIn. So I put that there so you can connect with him. Wanted to make sure I said that before people have to start heading out. I know we are at time, but at this time, the floor is open. If anyone would like to stick around and ask any questions or have any additional conversation with Samuel.
Great job, everyone. Thank you, Samuel.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I can say that I've been very fortunate for the opportunity to have learned the importance of calibrating. I was going about doing things in a way that I thought were meaningful, effective, that got good results. That was my sense of entitlement due to comfort. And I was not willing at that time to expand and grow. But when I learned it's possible to obtain favorable outcomes through tact, a different delivery, I stopped resisting doing the work. And that's when I came to learn the importance of emotional intelligence. And I think we all can agree, there's some of us who would benefit in knowing about emotional intelligence or having a better grasp. So this is my effort to try. And it does reach a lot of people. I try to speak about it to different audiences. I just love the conversation because it helped me. And if it can help another, I think I'm doing God's work.
There you go.
Are there any questions from anyone?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Again, thank you, Samuel. Great presentation. I mean, just awesome, right on time for me. But I just wanted to ask about the one example you gave in the car when the coworkers were driving and the one got upset because I guess somebody cut him off. And you were saying the best, and I struggled with the answer to that because you were saying the best answer was try to tell the coworker of a story or the time when you were cut off and then you realize the person was trying to go to the hospital. And I'm like wondering how, I mean, if you're driving, and I don't know where you're at, but if I'm in the Chicagoland area and it gets fierce sometimes, and how would you be able to tell a person a story like that in that moment while you're in traffic and that person is, I just was thinking, how would you be able to really calm that person down? Because I've definitely been in that situation before.
May I?
And you said what?
May I jump in?
Yeah, yes.
Sure. Make it relatable. Let that person know via empathy that you've been in that driver's seat situation before, and then let them know quickly and astutely that you found that in that situation, that other person was just in a rush to get somewhere and they weren't being mindful of their surroundings. But you, demonstrating empathy, survived it, didn't get angry, and hey, guess what? By you chatting about it with the driver, you calmed them down because you came in with a calm, empathetic attitude, and your voice is probably calming as well. And by the time you're done with that short explanation, hopefully that person who has cut you off has moved on down the road, and now you two are back to focusing on just getting to your point of destination.
Okay, thank you. So I hear your response. The main thing is to make it short because I'm thinking, oh,
Yeah.
you know, you don't want to
Oh
hear
yeah,
a
you don't
story.
want to tell them a long story.
Right.
Calm them with your voice.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I would agree with that. And thank you for that, Tim.
Sure.
This example is from a personal experience. And I, at the time, was the one driving and was rather frantic. So I was emotional. And I'm grateful that my uncle was the individual in the car. So, of course, he could have simply served as confirmation bias by saying, that jerk, that idiot, whatever the scenario may have been, it potentially could have triggered me to become more aggressive and act in a way that is out of my character. He could have dismissed my feelings and just turned on the radio and really shown no effort to care about the impact, you know? So there's a number of ways, but as Tim indicated, I think that if we were to calmly try to share, hey, I know that was rude, I know that was just totally uncalled for, but we're safe. They're ahead of us, they cut us off very rudely, but we're safe and we're alive. That can change the outcome. That would show empathy, you know? So as I see the feedback, great individuals are saying, lead with empathy. I think that will help in most instances. Does that help a bit?
Yes, thank you so much.
And guys, I would, this is Carl Hill, if I could just add a little bit to that. And I did put a couple of comments in roughly about adverse childhood experiences. And so the real point that I think that she was getting to is that if the limbic part of the brain is reacting, it's going to take a while for that part of that person to calm down enough to even be willing to hear and listen to that. And the other thing that I would like to add from an emotional intelligence standpoint is why some people appear not to have it or have difficulties learning it is because of things that may have occurred to them before they turn 18 from an adverse childhood experiences. And if you guys don't know what that is, I would encourage you to just Google it. But it's a 10-statement survey that asks an adult, did any of these things happen to them, such as living in a home where someone was addicted to drugs or alcoholism, someone who cared about you died before you were 18 years old, either being part of or seeing sexual, emotional, or physical abuse. You know, those things impact you as you mature.
Yes.
And if you've had 3, 4, 5 of those things, then you've had a lot of adverse experiences that will continue to put you into a fight or flight. You really don't have the emotional intelligence to deal with it because of what you did, what you have gone through. And if you have the ability to get intervention as an adult, then that will give you an opportunity to kind of manage through that. And you don't give the adverse childhood experience survey to anyone under 18 years old, because then you are theoretically setting them up to some abusive behavior and traumatizing them because they see that they're in an environment. But by knowing what those 10 things are, you can recognize some of that in an individual. And I will just end with this regarding the fight, freeze, or flight, that most of the people who have been shot by police have been doing what? Fleeing. They've never fought them. They don't freeze. They're trying to get away. But anyway, great presentation, sir. Absolutely incredible to help people understand how to manage through emotional intelligence.
Thank you. And I greatly appreciate your feedback. I actually am going to implement some of those points. And I love that I've been able to do this for different audiences because, again, as I communicated, I do not consider myself a subject matter expert, but someone that's willing to share their testimony. And with your feedback, that's going to allow me to insert that to just magnify the message. So thank you for that. It looks like I see Samuel Nixon, your hand up.
Yes, I was going to say excellent points that are brought out. And that's part of what my question was going to be, Samuel, was given that emotional intelligence is a way to respond, how we might think about how to nurture that earlier in our youth, I should say, in terms of how to respond to different situations, because that is an excellent way of planting something in terms of dealing with those situations that does cause us to be suddenly in the fight or flight or freeze mode there. How do we teach that in early stage so that in our society we begin to see more people incorporating that in terms of their own lives? And the brother that was just called, that was speaking earlier, I was picking up on his point, because I've had friends around me too say the same thing, is they come up with a traumatic childhood. So their only response that they learned in terms of survival was to fight or flight. And that was the two choices that they had to make. So this whole aspect of emotional intelligence was not either introduced or they didn't have the I would say the opportunity to actually learn how to do that, because it was survival in their cases. So my question becomes what kind of options or suggestions could we as adults and as parents of our young people expose them to this emotional intelligence approach of assessing, if you will, and then deciding the best way to do so, and what resources you might suggest in your coming across in your experience of maybe some attempts to do that. I didn't know if you may have seen some of that in the school settings or in our community settings there.
I love your question and I love your context. I see that there's a resource share. It says survival versus the luxury of contemplation. A resource that I rely on, that I've learned has been helpful, is Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It's a book, and it's a collection of items from psychologists and counselors, much of which grew up in the 40s and 50s, with addendums of those that have lived and are doing things well into the 2000s. I like to say, before I give my opinion, that is circumstantial and situational. I do not really believe in generalizations that one size fits all. And based on a person's upbringing, their environment, income, all of those things play a factor. But as you've indicated, there's a need to ensure that our younger people are given the sauce at a younger age that may help them. I think it takes a community. I do worry about the lack of emotional intelligence in a lot of our young people today as they are growing up in a world where social media is the primary way in which they communicate and engage. I do not, this is my opinion, I do not think it truly helps a person to know how to interact one-on-one in person with another if their primary interaction has been virtually for the majority of their life.
Yeah.
So this is an effort that I and many others on the topic try to do their part by saying, hey, this is important. So we all become walking ambassadors. So I like to say that because I do not want to give the appearance that there's a generalization, because I do not think there is. But I think we all, having decent and good morals, we have to make an effort. What I do believe, and I grew up in the old school, if I did or said something and it was noticed, that person got on me. And then it was told to my parents and they got on me. And when other family heard about what happened, they got on me. So I had a lot of course correction. And even with all of that effort and love and advocacy and outreach and support, it didn't do everything it could have. You know what I mean? So I feel as a first generation college graduate on both sides of my family, I have obtained great support and outreach from individuals in the community that helped mold me into the leader, some would say executive, that I am today. It did not come from a blueprint given to me by my parents, but from others that reached out. This is how you conduct yourself and speak when you're in the boardroom, facilitating to individuals that look nothing like you, nor have an awareness of your background. These are the ways in which you engage and interact with others that do not have your peace in life and accomplishment while showing dignity and not appearing that you are better than any other. That humility, you see what I mean? So I am a reflection of wisdom that has been shared with me. And I always give kudos to those that have tried and invested in me. So I feel that that is helpful. So what I can say in response to that, one resource that I pride myself on knowing is Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And I see that we also have another book recommendation by Mr. Hill, and that's looks like Mindset Psychology. I'll be looking that up as well. So another reason as to why I love this, and I see that Maria put a lot of great context in there, great things. So I ask everyone to look there as well. But going back to your question, I think it's very important that we just become advocates, Mr. Nixon. That's the reality, because when you say our youth, young people, they have so many sources of information coming at them. So I don't know what a widespread effort would be, but your deliberate efforts to those in your environment that you have access to, you have to do your part. And hopefully they become walking ambassadors to where this ripple effect spreads. I know that doesn't directly answer your question, but that's my truth and what I know. And I've learned, as I think you would appreciate, speak on what you know, not what you think.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And thank you for reminding us too, that it was a village that did raised you. It said in my generation as a first generation college too, because we had to learn from our community how to act. And that was one of the things we grew. And then as we did go into our professional settings, we learned from colleagues and others who gave us the tips. So I appreciate that. And thank you for your efforts. And I pray that we all do make our contributions accordingly. And thank you again for your presentation.
Amen. And I'm grateful for you and the efforts you and many other men have, what you have been to others. I'm a reflection of men and women who have invested in me as my life, my experience, my achievement is not a reflection of my upbringing and environment. So I feel the rent that I pay for the experiences that I have is to give back and to serve. So I'm with you. I'm trying to do my part. Do we have any other questions from anyone on the line before we conclude? I would like to say thank you all for those of you on the line. Thank you for making time. There's a lot of great resources that I'm sure Devin will share with the team. And these are great resources that I'm sure will be very helpful for those of you. So this is our time. Thank you all for joining. This has been a pleasure and a privilege.
All right.
Thank you, Samuel, for sharing with us today. Always good to see a familiar face here in this space. So who knows, we may see him in Atlanta too. We'll see. So thank you all for joining with us. Again, I shared all those links in the chat. I'm sure it's buried in there, but conference.bdpa.org for BDPACon 23, bdpa.org/tech, the letter N, career talks for the recordings of this. You can also go to YouTube, look up the National BDPA channel, and this will be out there as well. So thank you all for joining. We'll see you next time. We'll be back in a couple of weeks for another great one. So stay blessed. We'll see you next time.
Great job, Devin. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Timothy.
For sure. Thank you, everyone.